Sambo and welcome to Dawai Kudroen. Tonight I have a guest whose CV runs into more than 20 pages, and reading out the CV itself is going to make a very long program. So what I'll do is a brief introduction indeed from my side would be that Professor Robert Klitgaard is a professor at Harvard and Yale universities. So apart from that, let me give you this opportunity so that you can tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, I used to be a professor at Harvard and Yale. Now I'm a professor at Claremont Graduate University in California, where I served as president, and I was dean of the Rand Corporation, the world's biggest think tank. But it's been my blessing to be able to travel the world and help countries reform their economies and improve their governance. I've written 9 books. The latest one is an e-book, which your listeners can get. It's called Tropical Gangsters 2, and it's available on Amazon.
What does that book tell us about tropical gangsters?
Well, it talks about organized corruption in places like Nicaragua and South Sudan and Equatorial Guinea and Bolivia and Haiti. Some of the poorest places in the world are victimized by abusive governments. And it's describing what it's like there and what their efforts are to make reforms happen.
I know it's too much of an ask to ask you to tell our viewers the international scenario of corruption, but you have been to several countries. What is the scenario like?
Well, it's a positive scenario. It's a positive scenario. People don't like corruption. There are positive forces from business and civil society and government to reduce corruption. And around the world we see remarkable success stories of what people thought was corrupt culture and ingrained ways of life changing in a few years to something that's much healthier.
Sir, please correct me if I'm wrong. You said corruption is a calculated crime.
Yes.
Elaborate a bit more on this.
Well, you know, we can take several approaches to corruption. We can say it's a moral failing, and it is in some sense. But we can also say forget about the morality and forget about the individual. Let's suppose that corruption is a property of systems and not people. Let's suppose the systems give people calculations about, should I give you a bribe? Should I take a bribe? What are the risks? What are the rewards? How much am I being paid now? And we find that corruption flourishes when someone has monopoly power, plus the discretion to decide how much you get, and there's no accountability. So the formula for corruption is M plus D minus A equals C. And therefore, to fight corruption, apart from changing morality, which is very hard to do, if we can reduce monopoly power, if we can clarify discretion, make the rules of the game known to everyone, and enhance accountability, corruption will go down.
So in this context, would it be fair to say that it's important to empower people, empower citizens so that they put a check on the elected leaders?
There are many exciting examples around the world right now of empowering citizens. I think the cell phone is widespread here in Bhutan as well, right?
Yes.
So in Punjab, what they're doing, they used to have lots of corruption by agricultural extension agents, where I'm an agent, you're a farmer, you're 30 kilometers away. So I say to the headquarters, I visited him, but I didn't. Now when I go there, they take a cell phone picture of you and me, and it's sent back to headquarters with GPS and time. And I don't get paid unless that happens. Then the chief minister, 5% sample, sends you a text, says, how was your interaction with Klitgaard today? Good service? Anything wrong? And you text back. And then the minister thanks you. And they keep track of that to help monitor performance of the extension agents. And by the way, the politicians are very happy because the citizens think, the politicians care about me. I got a message from the chief minister. So we can see this kind of idea spreading now to give feedback from people about good and bad things that happen in their interactions with government.
So many forms of corruption prevalent in this world. What is the most disturbing and most challenging forms of corruption that you see?
Right. Well, some kinds go to the heart of the system. No economy can exist that has a legal system that is corrupted, that has a property rights system that is systematically corrupted, and where the credit system is systematically corrupted. If those things are corrupted all the way through, there's no investment. On the other extreme, small transactions where there are side payments of a small amount of money over the table for installing a telephone or installing a sewage system or something, those things are bad, but they're not go to the heart of the system. So in Bhutan, the heart of the system would be your newly minted democracy. How do the elections work? Are they free and fair? Are they corrupted? Your big infrastructure projects. Everywhere in the world, those are subject to tremendous amounts of manipulation. I don't know about here, but that's an area of risk. And then finally, making sure that everything that happens in the government in the rural areas where you're trying to push so much power, those can become enclaves of corruption where local interests take that money and do what they want with it. So empowering, as you said, the citizens to report back things they see, good and bad, can be a wonderful way to deter corruption.
Politics, as people say, is almost synonymous to corruption. And in your talks yesterday, you mentioned that corruption is almost glued to politicians. If that's the case, then I was asking some of our politicians that why can't we be unique?
Well, I think if that was what somebody heard yesterday, I don't believe that. I don't believe that politicians are inevitably corrupted or sticky with corruption. What I did say is when we move from a system that has no democracy to a system that has democracy, as citizens get used to elections, lots of corruption arises. Campaign financing, payment of citizens to come out and demonstrate, maybe corruption in the voting process itself. And those are risks. It's not inevitable. You can avoid it, but it is a risk.
One issue that Bhutan might face as opening to the outside world. Opening to the outside world meaning, we have more than 40 to 50 odd foreign channels and lots of examples being set, lots of corruption-related stories are coming into Bhutan. Those are happening outside of Bhutan. So, influence that you see, do you think this is something that we need to worry about?
Yes, definitely. The good news about free trade is it makes you more efficient. You will export the beautiful things you make in Bhutan, the beautiful skills you have that are amazing. You'll be able to fuse those with foreign talent to produce even higher value-added products. That's good for you. Everybody will prosper. You can do what you do well. The bad news about it is in comes things that maybe you don't want your young people to have, all the excesses of American materialism, but also in comes the desire to have quick money. I want my car now. I want to be a rap star or a basketball player or have the girls around me. So young people start getting this idea of a quick materialistic victory. And this can lead to all sorts of negative behavior. So that is a risk we have to fight in my country and in your country.
Lots to do with mindset of the people, and we keep talking about changing one's mindset. We have lots of Buddhist teachings where masters will always tell the followers to take care of their mindset, be mindful in whatever they do. But then the biggest problem that we see is to change one's mindset. What do we do?
Well, you are the experts on mindset. You are amazing exemplars for our world. I'm a lowly economist. So although I have very strong beliefs and teach my children about their mindsets, I don't know how a Ministry of Finance or a Ministry of Transportation or a large company tries to change the mindset of its employees. You can try to invigorate them and inspire them, but also you have to make sure your systems are not full of monopoly plus discretion minus accountability, that people are rewarded for good work and punished for bad things. And that's part of your responsibility. Also, we find that mindset follows behavior. Behavior does follow mindset, but as you get people to behave in different ways, get good habits. A good habit takes 6 weeks to create. A good habit then creates a mindset. So we also work on behavioral modification. What that means with our public behavior is we don't allow certain kinds of behavior, and then after a while, everybody realizes that's not the way we do things in Bhutan. Our mindset is not to allow that.
So the importance of leadership and leading by example is key in having a good system.
Well, I was inspired by some Buddhist teachings from the Buddha himself. Said when you have a king who is honest and forthright and just, the ministers will be honest, and then the high officials, and then the officials, and then the rest of us. So it does begin at the top with a just and noble leader who sets the standard for the rest of us.
Well, internationally, now, is the victim of corruption same throughout?
If you're asking, do the poor suffer from corruption? Absolutely. I've been impressed by the Philippines under Benigno Aquino III. The president of the Philippines campaigned on this slogan: where there's no corruption, there will be no poverty. That was his slogan, and he won a landslide victory, and he is implementing it now. So that before that huge typhoon, it was the fastest growing country in Asia, even more than the People's Republic of China. And they're doing massive amounts of interesting things to try to address rural poverty, and the people are responding. So anti-corruption and good government is good politics. For those ministers who are wondering, how can I get elected again? The answer is, if you stand up for good government and show people good results, you will be reelected.
How much do you believe in this idea of fighting corruption collectively, and what is how practical is it internationally? Because even here, Anti-Corruption Commission kept on saying that fighting corruption is a collective responsibility, and drawing from the words of Anti-Corruption Commission, we people in media tell people the same, that fighting corruption is a collective responsibility. You clean in front of your own doors and ultimately you will have a clean city, is what we keep telling people. But how practical is this?
Well, it's the future. You can see the most exciting examples around the world are areas where there's collaboration between business, citizens, and government to make government work better. I love the slogan of the Institute for Solidarity in Asia. Do you know what its slogan is? Making governance a shared responsibility. And how do they do that? They bring the competence of business, for example, to measure results and create incentive systems, and IT, and leadership training. They bring the competence of citizens to report on what their experiences are. Are they getting good service? Are they getting bad service? Are they paying bribes? And they get the comparative advantage of government, which is the authorizing environment and the national mission that this represents. You combine those forces, and we see examples in Asia, Latin America, Africa, those forces combining, leading to much better results in government.
Now, what do you think about the role that CSOs and media could play in fighting corruption? Because sometimes in Bhutan, what happens is, after 2007 to 2008, we have picked up on covering stories on corruption, and suddenly some people felt that media is trying to project Bhutan as a very corrupt country. And some, in the hindsight, there are again a group of people who said we are not doing enough. So sometimes less is more, and sometimes more is less. So what do you think?
Well, there's many good examples. In Peru, there's a CSO that has created a scorecard for every hospital, every city, and every ministry, where they ask citizens when they leave, how was your service today? Did you have to pay a bribe? And they amalgamate this, and working with the press, page 3 every 3 months is the results of the surveys, ranked the best to the worst of the cities. But they don't stop there. They have a national prize that they give every year for the best improvement of cities, ministries, and hospitals. It's judged first by technicians, and then the 3 finalists go to a committee, a blue ribbon committee of movie stars, soccer players, former presidents, and so forth, and it's covered on national TV. And they give an award for the most improved city. And the mayor gets up and he cheers, but they don't stop there. They document good practices. They have over 1,200 now on their website. So how do you improve land registry? Here's an example. And then they provide help to the cities that are lagging to improve using the knowledge from other Peruvian cities. Now imagine the analogy here in Bhutan. I've been watching Bhutan Superstar since I've been here. So how about if we have Bhutan Governance Superstar, where we get some examples, not of bad things, but of things where they've turned around a project. They've made something happen for villagers, and they're happy about it, that we can all learn from and celebrate our success.
I have had several experts, anti-corruption experts, tell me that transparency is key to good governance. Transparency, in a way, promotes accountability and thereby having a good governance. Now, if that's the case, everyone in Bhutan by now know that transparency is key to having a good government. If that's the case, then how can we make things transparent?
Well, saying it and doing it is a separate matter, isn't it? So let me give you an example. For every government contract, is it now posted in advance what the terms of the contract are, and then afterwards how much was paid for what things? Is that posted on the internet? Even if not everybody in every village can read the internet, some people can, and the word will get out. They paid far too much for this. So having that kind of transparency is one small step to make people feel much more confident of big transactions.
What do you do if public officials are not willing to share information and talk to the media and educate people on certain issues that are very much in the interest of the public?
Yes, well, there's a difference between having a transparent principle where every contract comes up and every transaction is posted, then coming to me and saying, what about this particular transaction? What about this particular person? What about this particular thing? And especially if we're investigating it, then I can't reveal that. I can't talk to you about particular cases. But what we want to do is have a general principle where all cases are made transparent. Then I'm not embarrassed by talking about a specific case. Every government minister's finances are public. Every lifestyle change. Here's another one. In many countries, when a politician is elected, he tries to find ways to appoint people he knows to high position or to influence contracts being awarded. So what we do now in some countries is we routinely post every appointment and say who are his friends, who are his relatives. Every contract, who are his friends and who are his relatives. And of course, sometimes very qualified people will be the friends of somebody who's powerful, no problem. But if we see a pattern of that, and it's routine, so I don't just come and investigate this particular case, but I post this every case. Every single appointment, we talk about who the relatives are and the friends. Then it becomes routine, then it's transparency, and then it deters bad behavior, and it gives me confidence as a citizen that this is not a bunch of old boy network here or old girl networks.
One issue, corruption actually undermines national security and sovereignty. So if you could elaborate a bit on this. I think national security and sovereignty is one issue that people who are not directly affected, in fact, take it for granted. And corruption may affect it in many ways, but people seem to be least bothered about this. What do you think?
You know, I don't know enough about the Bhutanese situation. I know you have a very close ties with India, this giant economy to your south, which is 116th in illegal payment and bribes in the world. Okay? So they're in very bad shape compared to you. So if you're doing a lot of business with a place that's very corrupt, like India, there will be a threat that that behavior will become reinforced here. Is that a threat to your sovereignty or your national security? I don't know. I don't know enough about Bhutan. But it's certainly the case that your partners around here, Nepal is one of the most corrupt countries in Asia, Bangladesh is one of the most corrupt countries in Asia. You're surrounded by places that are not good examples of good business practices. Ethics in business in India is number 86 in the world. Okay? So we've got to protect ourselves by good systems to make sure that those practices that are routine for them don't become routine for us. I just don't know enough about Bhutan. In some countries, the military plays a huge role. I don't know if it does in Bhutan. And so the military can be a hive of corruption. You think of Egypt or Indonesia before Yudhoyono. I mean, these places have the military in business making canned soda drinks, making roadways, making school buildings. The military, running hotels. So what are they doing? Well, what they're doing is making money. And then, of course, military procurement is famously corrupt in these countries. So when you get your military systematically corrupted, it's very dangerous for national security because then you have coup d'etats, you have, you try to clean it up and they say, no, you can't clean it up, I'm too big for you. So, in Indonesia, the police was very corrupt. The anti-corruption agency, when it was new, there's a telephone conversation between the chief of police and the head of the anti-corruption agency. And the chief of police said, you are just a lizard. I am an alligator. You watch out. Don't come investigating me.
In a democratic setup, be it any democracy in the world, now one challenge that people see is electoral corruption. How much concerned should we be in our case?
There's a very big concern there. I don't know Bhutan's situation, but I think for most emerging democracies, this is a great challenge. And it happens in two ways. One is the financing of the campaign, which can be very wasteful. Lots of money must be raised, and so politicians in office try to find ways to get the money for their campaigns. That happens in my country as well. Try to find ways to raise money. Our congressmen now are spending 50% of their time raising money for campaigns. Wasteful. The other side is the actual election itself, when people are kept away from the polls through abusive behavior, or there are false ballots cast, or ballots are lost, or ballots are counted corruptly. That's a very grave danger. So I guess both are dangers, but if I were Bhutan, I would focus on the electoral process, making sure that's very clean, lots of civilian participation and oversight by all parties, making sure that there's a guaranteed mark that anybody who votes will have it. So just to make sure that process is absolutely pristine.
Final question, not so much of a question, but what would be your advice to Bhutan or Bhutanese? Because we tend to believe in foreign as well and listen to the foreign as well.
I'm very impressed by your country. You have such a warm heritage here. You have so much talent here. Looking just at the Textile Museum was an awesome experience to me. And then getting around the country and seeing people and trying to imbue the spirit of Bhutan, I'm very impressed. Don't lose that. And find examples of countries that have moved forward without losing that spirit. I was mentioning Bali, the island in Indonesia, which has tremendous tourist business. They have lots of foreign designers helping them out, but in their villages they've developed a positive circle of excellent crafts, excellent textiles, excellent paintings, and the tourists come to see that. And they come to stay at very high-end but Balinese-style hotels. And I think that example, and maybe Japan, an example that's been able to strengthen its culture even as it embraces the modern world. Those are the positive examples that I would hope Bhutan can learn from, even as we learn from you.
So on this note, we would like to end our program. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. Yes. With this, we come to the end of our program. Thank you so much for watching Dawai Kudroen.